embedded system. And what do embedded engineers do exactly? They write embedded software or work on making on hardware. Is there any something called as embedded C? Colleges and people online have made embedded very confusing. There are a lot of misconception and myths regarding embedded. Let's clear all the misconception related to this field. In this video, let's exactly see what is an embedded engineer does and the what average salary you can expect from each embedded rules. Let's make this video as a practical as impossible. We can build a strong electronics community. Okay, let's answer the basic question. What is an embedded system? Basically, you use microprocessor develop and system to do specific task. Now this can be independent system or part of large system from your TV remote or your AC remote, washing machine, ACs, phones, laptop, smartwatches to system in cars, plants and spacecrafts. All the embedded system basically in any smart device you can see around in an embedded system. But what do you do? Embedded engineers exactly do. We will understand this using real life examples. Okay, let's say we need to design flap for a wing of aircraft. If you are in the window seat while landing, you will have observed that part of wing goes down. This is mainly done to reduce speed of an aircraft so that it can land using less runway. Like in hilly areas, you usually have shorter runway. If you have not observed it till now, observe it the next time this flap is moved using a motor and this flap can be set to 5 to 15 10 15 or 40 degree. This is called usually flap 1, flap 2, flap 4. Landing of the objective for embedded team will be to control the motor at any particular angle and keep it stable. There is something called as SK sensors which detects if both flaps are the same angle, otherwise there will be imbalance in the flight. Now the team comes into action. First task will be design the entire system design. This is usually done by system engineers. Here you have to choose whether to go with a microcontroller or microprocessor, which processor family to choose, 16-bit control, 32-bit control or 8-bit, whatever will be memory power requirements. They will choose the best of possible decision of our process. We will have consider how much data needs to process and what budget do we have, and then will you have to see what all uh, IoT requirements there are. Allow choose appropriate sensors, motors and additional memory if required, mainly capacity and type of memory for the task will the deciding factors. Also whether the system will be battery operated or plug-in power is available for all of this. Will have to keep going through different sheets uh, like sensors and the motor driver will in turn to connect the motor. This is the upper level presentation. Then bomb bill of materials preparation, which will have the components that will use along the quantities. Once the bomb and block diagram ready to process start in parallel, first designing the hardware and second programming the microcontroller in hardware development. You first develop the detailed schematic using and block diagram with all the proper connections, and then design the final PCB. For this is done by embedded hardware engineers, and in software development you can code the microcontroller for the specific task, like in our case by taking data from the sensor and controlling the motor. This is done by the embedded software engineers. But your obvious question will be, how does the embedded software person control the hardware? By microcontroller. Exactly. If the development of the hardware goes in parallel, they use development modes, and they are available for start of by programming the microcontroller. That's why an embedded software engineers also need to have knowledge about hardware. Knowledge about hardware is what exactly differentiate an embedded software engineers from general software engineers. Like in our case, you will be controlling the motor from the microprocessor. So you need to know everything about the microprocessor. You need to go through the datasheet processor properly, know about the GPU pins, then along this digital bins, and no memory constraint device accordingly code it. But the language is used to code microprocessor. See, just see, you will have a hard heard professional people's online saying the embedded engineers code in embedded C, which is extension of C programming, and both of them are two different languages. Let me clear this very big myth of embedded C and C are not two different languages. Neither is embedded C an extension of traditional C. Embedded C is same as the C programming itself. The reason why people embedded C is different language is because they see that they can access the registers and points pins of microcontrollers directly in the code. Like at 51 you use T mode, SCON, TI, like etc code, whereas in traditional C we don't use them. But these at 51 registers are declared, and they are mapped to the physical address location of 51 header file register 51. Just these are the part of your linker script, not these some special variables, whereas traditional C codes declare defining of variables, then the compiler converts it into the object code. Later linker decides where is actually goes into the memory, because in your traditional C code you are not bothered in memory location. Variable actually goes in embedded. You can there is a no special language called as embedded C. For now on, if someone says embedded C, correct them and say C of embedded system. These avoid all the confusions and make it clear. So now that we know that as an embedded software engineers you should master C, let's go ahead. But before you code the microprocessor, you need some kind of software that leads that loads or updates code into microprocessor. This is the job of your boot loader. Like when you start your computer, the first thing you see the screen is BIOS. Write it. Basically check if all the hardware is fine, and then load the boot loader. Turn loads in OS kernel into the memory in the same way bootloader. Let's coming to hardware design, which is done by hardware engineers, as same people also like to call it as embedded hardware engineers. May people think that hardware engineers make everything on hardware, including the processor, Let me clarify this properly. See, VLSI engineers make everything on hardware. Like VLSI engineers make the processor or the chip, then embedded engineers develop the system around the chip. The embedded software person code the process, and embedded hardware persons use the processor and interface the circuit around it. It has the hardware engineers who will to develop the complete schematic by using the block diagram and design the hardware on PCB in just one PCB. You will have all the connections and the main controller on it. You will have to keep signal integrity, EMC in mind. While designing the hardware, we don't use our gadgets in an isolated environment right around us. There will be magnetic radiations. We need to be sure that those signals don't affect our system, especially in these cases or designing the flap system. Aircraft, we need to take extra care. Also, we need to design the PCB according to the protocols we use, like I2C, SPI, etc. Embedded software engineers, then it is used by companies like BE, Panasonic, or LG to make their consumer electronics like AC, fridge, washing machine. In both these industries, you require embedded engineers, but the starting salary are very different. In semiconductor industries, starting salary of embedded software engineers are on par with VLSI engineer salary. So in these companies, you can expect the starting salary from 15 LPA to 40 LPA. But